Here's what happened. I have learned about a new Japanese practice. Well, it's new for me. It's been around since like the 1980s, and it is called, I'm going to do my best here. It is called Shinrin-yoku, which in Japanese means forced bathing. And it's not that type of bathing that you're thinking. It's doctors, they prescribe this as a form of therapy. And what I want to get into are the benefits, 5 benefits of being outside with the trees and connect it back to burnout, of avoiding it, but also to move towards who it is you want to become for a more energizing life and a better life. So this is Make Burnout Extinct. I'm Robert David Weeks. Before getting into it today, I want to say thank you for listening. And if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe and follow the show for the latest, to stay up to date for the latest episodes. My commitment to you by you doing that is to make this the best show it can be, to be the best storyteller, the best researcher that I can be for you, and the best interviewer for the guests that are coming on to share their insights. So I appreciate you for being a part of this movement. To get into it today, the problem that can come up for you is feeling like you've been spending so much time indoors, right? Where you could do everything indoors, it feels like, and continue to live your life. So if it's gotten to that point where you're noticing that you've been, maybe a few days have gone by and you're like, wow, I've been inside for a long time. I want to get into these 5 benefits for you to help you to have a shift in your perspective of what it means to be outside with the trees, what this does for your body, and the overall impact through the research out there, overall powerful impact that this has on your well-being, and specifically with your stress levels. Because I think about that as a kid, I always liked getting outside. And I did this 3-week wilderness trip up in Maine that felt like this rite of passage where you went out there, you camped, you made up your tent, you cooked your food out there, and we were able to hike. It was like myself and a group of other boys at the camp that I was at. And I was around like, I think 15 years old, 14 years old maybe, when I did this thing. And it did feel like that rite of passage. And I was so present during that trip. Like all you could do is be with the people that you were with, being able to have conversations, focus on the stuff you got to get done in the day. And it was an amazing feeling, an amazing experience. And then when I look back to a few years ago with the pandemic, which I feel like you could relate to, is I realized how much time I was spending indoors. I was spending more than 90% of my time indoors. And on average, an American spends around 90% of their time indoors. And so for me, I was feeling miserable by doing that. And that's where I focused on a habit of getting outside and being outside for what started as 2 hours and then it's grown out to like 4 hours. Also, it brings like a calming and relaxing feeling, and it's a great reset. So with burnout, what I want to focus in on is the first red flag of burnout, which is chronic exhaustion, which is a result of that stress, overwhelm, and anxiety that can build up and can cause the immune system to respond in a way where there creates like a low-grade inflammation in the body. That is where then the chronic exhaustion can hit and you feel the fatigue and the tiredness, even though you might be resting. You might be like, why the hell am I doing this? Well, it's because the immune system, it's out of whack. And it can feel like that hamster wheel where you're going nowhere. So with forest bathing, I want to get into the 5 benefits for you of being outside and being with the trees. Then I want to share with you specifically what to expect. Well, I'll share a bonus too. I got some bonus benefits for you, so I got you. And then I want to get into like actually a practical guide of what to expect from the body of being outside with trees, especially if you haven't done this for a long time or consistently. What could come up for you and prepare for. And then specifically like what you can do for the next few days to start building this as a consistent habit, because it really is a habit. When you break it down, it's a habit of being outside with trees. And I go back to what is going to help you to avoid burnout and make burnout extinct is to remind yourself that every day you're on this spectrum where your habits that you experience, both from external influences to internal influences, either move you towards being dragged by the burnout beast to hitting burnout or move you towards making burnout extinct. And this one absolutely can help you towards making burnout extinct. And it gets into the first benefit that I want to get into, which is that the first benefit is breathing in. And this is another word that's a struggle. Here we go. It is photosids. Photosids. That is definitely not right. That is wrong for that pronunciation. I'm already thinking about it. but how you can refer to it is tree essential oils. So it is a chemical, organic chemical that is released by trees as a defense. It's like a cool like defensive move from insects and diseases. And it's mostly concentrated in evergreen trees. So you can think about it as like the pine, like Christmas tree, especially with the holidays coming up and Christmas coming up. So it's those type of trees. And how I imagine this, going back to my video game roots here, is I imagine it as a power up in the game Mario Kart. Like it's like a speed boost. And what these essential oils do as you inhale them is that they help for your body to produce more natural killer cells and activate these natural killer cells. So what they are for these cells in your body, which is so mind blowing, like so cool, is that they are a type of white blood cell that destroy diseased cells like cancer cells in the body. And I'm trying to think of like an imagery of this. It feels like a cool like army within you, like handling business and taking out these cancer cells. And the effects of breathing in these tree essential oils from the research has shown that it could last for more than a week. So cool. Like what? Mind blowing on that one. And especially now I'm thinking about this, you're like, all right, dude, I'm in a place where there's like a ton of snow around. It's super cold. That's going to be a struggle to get outside. What I want to share with you, it's so cool, is that even in winter, yes, it's going to be lower levels of these chemicals that are released, but there you can still experience these tree essential oils in the evergreen trees because they are year-round trees. Like they don't lose their leaves. So yes, those levels will be lower, but you can still experience it in the wintertime, and that can help you, especially for that excuse of, oh, it's too cold, like I don't want to get outside, I don't want to have to deal with it. That's the way you work through that excuse. So that's the first benefit. Now I want to get into the second benefit for you, which is lowering your stress levels. And how that works is it lowers the hormones cortisol and adrenaline, which are produced when you hit a stressful situation. The body responds with first the adrenaline, which is like that pump. You're just feeling like jacked up, ready to go. It's the fight or flight mode where I'm trying to think of another way. It's kind of like that game time mode. Like you feel that energy, and then cortisol gets pumped in after that. So what happens is, again, going back to stress, if you're constantly in a fight or flight mode for the body with cortisol levels being produced, that is where then the immune system can get out of whack and all of a sudden starts to create this low-grade inflammation because cortisol is continuously being produced, and that's where you hit that first red flag of chronic exhaustion that then creates the domino effect of feeling that negativity, and then you get into like performing terribly, and that's where all of a sudden you're hitting burnout and performing terribly when it comes to work or in your relationships. Burnout can be experienced not just in work but other areas of life. I've talked about it before of how burnout is interconnected with all areas of life. So going back into this for lowering those stress levels, I think about that in my own experience of when I'm around trees, I realize how small my problems are. Like they are so small. I'm looking at this gigantic tree in front of me and I'm like, shit. Like it puts things in perspective, which is so cool. And also what it does for me is I feel connected to more than just me. I realize I'm part of nature. Like there tends to be the separation of like, oh, nature, like we're not a part of nature. You are a part of nature. And it's so beautiful to be reminded of that and how interconnected we all are. I really do believe that on an energetic level that we're all connected. And so you don't feel then so alone in this world or feel isolated in this world by being outside with trees. And then what is also interesting is I think about that even today for me. I didn't get outside for a while and I felt boxed in. And that could be something that comes up for you is you feel this boxed in feeling, the pressure in the body is building and you feel like everything around you is closing in. That is where, for me, when I got outside today and I was outside, it made me feel expansive and also reminded me of I can handle my problems. I was able to get like my arms like around these problems is what it feels like. They weren't so big. That helps you to be able to show up and put the reps in for your better habits and to make progress in your life towards who it is you want to become. Like being able to realize that you can handle these problems helps your nervous system to come back into a parasympathetic state, a relaxed state, in order to then take action and move forward in your life rather than freezing. That is where for me I can freeze up and then I don't take any action and I stay stuck. And that's something I wouldn't want for you to have happen. Now for the third benefit is that it reduces anxiety. And I go back to the history of forest bathing. It was developed in the 1980s, and it's focused on being present. So in Japan, I didn't know this until recently. I had an idea. Well, it came up once in a while, but like I didn't realize just how intense the work culture is there. Like there are companies there called quitting companies that help people to quit their jobs. Like it can get that intense for the communication between the boss and employees. It's intense over there. So for this focus of forest bathing, it was to help people to be present. And I think about that of connecting that to anxiety, where with anxiety, it can bubble up when there's confusion as to the best direction to move forward for your future. That is where you can create these potential scenarios that come up, where all of a sudden you have like 100 potential scenarios of all the things that could go wrong. And that anxiety builds up within you and can feel overwhelming. But what it is future thinking, right? You're thinking about all the future and there's no clarity there. So it's confusing and it feels like you're in this fog and all you're dealing with around you are the potentially challenging future scenarios that could happen. So when you're out with, when you're with trees, and again, if you're in a city, you could find green spaces where there are trees. You don't have to be in the big forest. But what this does is it helps you to be present with your senses and helps you come back to your body and reconnect, which can then cause all these ridiculous scenarios that come up in your mind and the worry that can come from that, cause them to stop because you're focused in the present moment, reconnected with your body, and you're able to bring all your senses into it. Because you think about that, for the smell of the trees, to the sounds, if there's birds nearby, to the sounds of the city, if the city's right there, if you have cars going by, or if you're out in nature, being able to hear the running water, like all, and then feel your feet on the ground, feel your body. If you're hanging out at the park and you want to just relax, feeling your body on the ground. There are all these ways that can create attention for your senses and bring you back to presence. And with that reconnection with your body, it goes into then the fourth benefit, which is relaxing muscle tension. Before I reconnected with my body and I went through this process that has fueled me on this mission to make burnout extinct, what I didn't realize, I had so much muscle tension build up. Like I get a lot of tension in my jaw too. Like I'm wondering if that happens for you. As I'm doing this, I'm yawning. Oh man, that's when like I'm rubbing my jaw right now, and it's really nice. But I get a lot of tension around my jaw, and then my shoulders. Oh shit! Like I remembered. I feel like my shoulders would elevate. Like right now I'm on video here and I'm like, my shoulders would come up to my neck and like you can barely see the sides of my neck because it'd be up there with tension. And I just remembered like being able to relax my shoulders and notice that change. It was mind blowing to notice the change. I was like, oh shit, like I have been really tense in my shoulders. So being outside, I really notice a drop in my shoulders. And even today, I would notice that where I could relax my shoulders. And what this does is it's super helpful for problem solving, like being able to get in a more relaxed state. It opens up possibilities then for ways to solve the problem that I'm dealing with. And specifically, one that I was dealing with today was what to say in a conversation. Like I was getting stuck and I felt like I was hitting against an imaginary wall and it was a struggle. So for me, I was able to get outside, and by getting outside, I was then able to figure out the solution of what it is I wanted to say, how I wanted to say it, and feeling more relaxed in discovering those solutions. And what it leads me to is then the fifth benefit. And this is going into movement. it promotes your body to produce more energy through movement. So with your mitochondria in the body, those are like the energy engines that take the ATP, the energy currency, and produce energy for your body. And through movement, that's what helps ignite that process. So it's great for an energy boost in the middle of the workday to be outside, or to start the day. Think about that with a morning walk to get started, or the end of the day, being able to have that time to unwind. And you can even go, if you have a partner or friends, to be able to go out and experience that time of reconnection. Also to be able to create a break with work, to have that opportunity to reconnect with yourself and those that are around you. So those are the 5 benefits that I want to get into. So now I got some bonus benefits for you. And I'm getting this from Dr. Andrew Huberman, and it's related to the sunlight. So even on cloudy days, your body can absorb sunlight. And one of the benefits of absorbing sunlight is vitamin D. And vitamin D is such an important vitamin for your immune system to be functioning well and optimized. So by getting outside, you're able to increase your vitamin D. And if you have a fear of getting outside without any sunscreen on, what I use is a UV index app that can tell me when are the best times in the day to get outside for sunlight without with avoiding getting burnt. And what also helps by getting sunlight in the morning and at night is that it improves your sleep through supporting your circadian rhythm. So being able for your body to naturally understand what time of day it is by getting outside, getting that sunlight. And at the end of the day, around sunset time, you can get outside as well. I've noticed in my own life that it can improve my sleep. But what's important is actually doing it. And that's where it's staying consistent with it as a habit. I have to remind myself of this as I'm like doing this. I'm like, yeah, dude, you could definitely do this more often for making sure you're getting the morning in as well as the night one, like as the sunset's hitting, because I do feel better by doing that. And it's being able to be outside with the trees with all these other benefits. You're able to get these benefits as well from the sunlight. So now I want to get into like a practical guide of what to expect from the body for sensations that can come up as you're preparing to start to implement this habit. And what I want to lead with is you don't have to spend a lot of time outside, right? You don't have to spend hours and hours and hours, like 4 hours. You don't have to do that to get started. But the key is to get started. So what will naturally come up from the body is resistance to this, especially if you have not been doing this consistently. The reason for that natural resistance to come up is because there can be this desire to want to keep things as they are, right? Like there can be a lot of stuff going on in your life, a lot of stuff that can feel chaotic out there. And so structure and routine, I know that in my own life is so helpful. But if it's routine that's actually causing me to move towards hitting burnout, that's something I don't want for you. It's wanting to create habits and routines that are helping you to move towards making burnout extinct and staying there for the majority of the time in your life. It's never going to be perfect, but that's the focus. And so this is one of those habits that absolutely can help you and benefit you for overall well-being. So what will happen because of that resistance is it could be because your body doesn't know really how to feel relaxed because it's been for so long in the fight or flight mode. Right? That's where you feel the chronic exhaustion. That's where the fatigue could be happening and you're feeling tense in your body. So when you first start doing this habit, you may not notice a big difference. And that is natural, especially if you're in fight or flight. You may immediately get a change and feel that intensity. You may immediately get that change and you notice drastically the difference. But I want to remind you, if you don't get it after the first time, it's not a one or done with this, right? This is something to try over. This is something to focus on for at least a week to notice the change in your body. Because then as you're putting the reps in, you're helping the body to adapt to the new routine, the new habit that you're implementing in your life. So what you can try is 7 days for at least 20 minutes of being outside with trees and notice the impact. So to check in before you go of how you're feeling, and then afterwards, you can just take a few moments to check back in. You can either write it out or just think about it of how you're feeling after the 20 minutes. If you want more time out there, you can absolutely do more time, but at least try 20 minutes to get started. And what will be really cool is to notice the difference after the 7 days for the impact that this has and how you are feeling. And what I want to remind you of is this is a starting habit, right? This is laying down the foundation, but then making burnout extinct isn't just one habit to focus in on. It's a combination of multiple habits, and there's no one right way, but there's a right way for you. So what's important to check in for this habit is, does it feel energizing for you? Do you feel at the end of this habit, after the 7 days, was it energizing? Did you notice these benefits happen in your life? And that can help you with the momentum to keep going with this habit. And what I want to remind you of is another habit that you can do at the end of being outside with the trees for 20 minutes is to celebrate this thing, like as if you scored a touchdown or a goal. Like literally get your whole body involved in this celebration, because that will also remind the body that you want more of this, which then can also help with your momentum to keep going and keep doing this thing. And what I want to remind you of, if you haven't heard it yet today, is I believe in you. You are capable of being able to start this habit and stay consistent with it for the next 7 days for at least 20 minutes. You got this. If you like this episode, please don't forget to rate this podcast and help get this message out of Make Burnout Extinct. And you can share what resonates with you from this episode by connecting with me on Instagram or LinkedIn. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. I don't take that for granted ever, and I'm so excited to reconnect again soon.